I
Camera's
left
not
it
on.
on. I did that at 6 o'clock.
But the camera's not on.
Right, so that I left for him.
Okay.
Um,
So let's see if Shlomi's there. No, nobody's in the room yet.
no, it doesn't look like anybody's logged in, right? You're the host, right?
Yeah, but Effie's on. David Salty's
Yeah,
on.
I
They're
know.
on.
Everyone's on, but Shlomi said he was going to the room. Okay, you go ahead. I'll figure out with Shlomi.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Okay, so we on Erev Shabbos we learned halacha about whether or not you're allowed to bring a carbon to a situation where the full gamut of its achila options should be limited. Like we know that we don't bring a carbon taida on Erev Yom Kippur because you won't be able to finish eating it the night of. You're going to limit the zman achila to just Erev Yom Kippur. So the Gemara had a question. The Mishnah brought a case where an osham was mixed in with a shlamim. And the Mishnah says you'll just treat it like an asham and you'll only eat it for one day and one night. But that was the opinion of Reb Shimon. But the Chachamim told him you're not allowed to do that. And therefore, they said that you'd have to yira achi. So the Gemara gets into a discussion. It seems like Reb Shimon holds that there's no problem with limiting a carbon. And that was the discussion. So we are now up to a kasha about this, and that is Hadaf Ein Vav with Aleph, on the fourth line from the top, the last word on the line. And the Gemara says Safek. Now, up until this point, the Gemara brought a raya, in fact, that Reb Shimon holds that you are allowed to be mamayit the achila of a carbon. The Gemara said that maybe only b'di'evit, only if you're in a tight spot, like with the osham and the shlamim or in some other tight spot, you're allowed to. But the achila, you wouldn't be allowed. So the Gemara says, "Eisvei, ein loichim truma b'kesef meiser." You're not allowed to buy truma with meiser money, which means meiser sheni money. Mipnei shemamayit bachilaso. So, a lot of talk in the Rishonim what this means, but Rashi here says, normally you can eat truma anywhere, but if you buy it with mois masher sheni, now you'll be limited to eating that truma only within the walls of Yerushalayim. So any way you restrict the achila of truma would be a problem. But for Reb Shimon Matir, and now this is an example of a lechatchila. Clearly, lechatchila, Reb Shimon holds that there's no concern with restricting the achila of truma. So you see, Reb Shimon lechatchila allows such a situation. Not only in our Mishnah's case, where we were trying to make the asham that got mixed up with the shlamim work, but even lechatchila, you're allowed to do things to limit the achila of truma. Ishtik, he was quiet, meaning he didn't have an answer. This seems to be a good raya. Ishtiklei. He also l'kamed Rabbi Yosef. When he came to Rabbi Yosef, Omalei, Rabbi Yosef said, "I agree, you have a good raya, but you could have had another raya. Amai loy tusvei meha. You could have brought a different raya." That Rabbi Shimon holds that lechatchila, you're allowed to limit the achila of kachim or truma, because the Brisa says, "Ein mivashlim yerek shel shvius b'shemen shel truma." You're not allowed to cook a vegetable that was from a Shemitah year, which is limited to only be eaten while you can eat shvius, shemen shel truma, which you can eat unlimited, because you're limiting the achila of the truma. Shelo yavayu kachim leveis psul, so that it shouldn't possibly cause kachim to be limited. Rabbi Shimon Matter, and Rabbi Shimon allows it. So this Zok Rabbi Yosef would be another example of where Rabbi Shimon lechatchila allows the limiting the scope of the achila of truma. Omale Abaye. So Abaye said that wouldn't be a raya because v'lav mi usvusei mehada tavlin. We on Friday we had a kasha from a case of spices that kohanim used spices of truma to spice the meat of kachim, which also limits how long they can be eaten for, it would limit it to the Zman Achila of the carbon that they're spicing with it. So we had such a kasha. What did the Gemara answer there? The Gemara answered, the Amarli, Hanach L'Trumas Tavlin Rabbanon. Don't bring me a raya from Trumas Tavlin, because that's only Midrabanon. Midrabanon, if it's only Truma Drabanon, maybe they weren't Makbid. So Hochanami, here too, Trumas Yerek Drabanon. A Yerek is only Truma Midrabanon, therefore we wouldn't be worried about limiting its Zman Achila. Correct the Gemara, but that's not what the Brisa says. The Brisa doesn't say that the Yerek was Truma. The Brisa said that the Shemen was Truma. That's Truma Deraisa. So Ihachi, Ibcha Mibayla Lemisni. It should have been Yerek Shel Truma, Beshemen Shel Shvius. Zok Gemara, okay, checkmate over there. But we have another Terence. The Lav Mius Luzemi Masnisen. The Gemara already asked the Kasha on Reb Shimon from our Mishnah that said that you're allowed to treat the shlomim like the osham and limit its achila. The mater Reb Shimon, the Amarli, the Arav, and what did the Gemara answer? Alamid base. That's a di'evet. They got mixed together. Now we have a solution. We have a problem. How do we deal with it? So we limit the achila. But we're discussing with achila. So therefore, there as well, the yerek got mixed in with oil. The yerek of shvius got mixed in with oil of truma. We're stuck. What are we supposed to do? So there we could allow it to be b'mayit. Zok to Gemara, hachanami the Arif. Say it was mixed together. Frank to Gemara, I don't understand. Eat the Arif. If it's mixed together and there's no solution, my tamayu the Rabbanon. So why is it that in this case the Rabbanon say you're not allowed to do it? What are you supposed to do? You have oil mixed in with this vegetable. There really is no way out. Why wouldn't they be agreeable? Zok to Gemara, what do you mean? By Osham and Shlamim, they also disagreed with Rab Shimon. Zok Gemara Mitami, there's no comparison. Hazam is late Hakanta Beria. In the case of the Mishnah, where the Osham got mixed in with the Shlamim, if we're not going to allow to limit the Achilas Shlamim, it doesn't make everything possible. What you do is you wait till they get a boom, you sell them, and you have a different way of dealing with it. But here, there is no other way to deal with it. Midami also mislead the Cantaberia. Hall Leslie the Cantaberia. Here there's no plan B. You know what, you could compare our case with the vegetable that's soaking in oil of truma. This is comparable to the second case in our Mishnah. The second case in our Mishnah was a case where there was no alternative to solve this problem because it was pieces of a shlomim that got mixed in with pieces of oil. There you don't have the option of Yirachi Yistoiv. And there everybody agrees that you have to limit the Zman Achil of the Shlomim. So why would this vegetable of Shavias in the oil of Truma be any different? Zok to Gemara, but you still have an Eitzah. Yes, the vegetable has absorbed the oil of Truma. Squeeze it out. Squeeze it out. Frank the Gemara of Rabbi Yosef, what do you mean you should squeeze it out? If you put this vegetable in a press and literally squish every bit of oil out of it, you're going to destroy the vegetable. Kamav said you're not allowed to destroy pairs of shvias. And this porta, if you're only going to squeeze a little bit out of it, well, then you still have truma mixed into it. So since there's no solution, everybody would agree that you just have to limit the zman achila of the truma to the zman achila shvias. Okay, Zok Gemara Baiter. Eisvei, Reb Shimon Aimer. Now this was a case where there was a Safek whether somebody was a Metzora finishing off his term. Now, after all of his Tahira, the last thing that the Metzora does is he brings a carbon and he brings an Osham. And we learned about this Osham that besides spritzing dam on the Mizbeach, they also spritz dam al boyin yoda hayimanes, al boyin ragle hayimanes, and on his earlobe. There are two matonis of dam. And if you remember, we learned that there are two kabbalas of dam of this Osham. There's one kabbalas of dam in a keli, and that's to make this rikon of Mizbeach, and the other kabbalas of dam was in the hand of the kohen, from where he took the blood to put on the ear and on the toes of the Metzora. So in such a case where it was a Safek if he was a Metzora, and he also has to bring a like shemen. So the Mishnah tells us, what do you do if it's a Safek? You don't know if you're chayiv an osham or not. You don't know if you're chayiv to bring the like shemen. What do you do? So you bring it, the oimer, and you say it tonight. Im shal Metzora, if in fact I am a Metzora, this carbon should be an asham, and this like shemen is going to be for the process of the Metzora. However, what if I'm really not a Metzora, and then I have to make this all into a nedava? So turning on the base, the imlav asham zeh shel shalom nedava, we'll treat it like a shlom. Now, since right now, as we're processing this carbon, we don't know if we're processing an asham or if we're processing a shlomim. This carbon might go either way, depending on whether or not this fellow was actually a Metzora. So therefore, we have to treat it with the chumrah of both the asham and the shlomim. The oisei asham, ton shchita b'tzafod, has to be shechted in the tzafod, just in case it's an asham. Umatan b'hoinais, and it needs dam on the b'hoinais of the Metzora, just in case it's an asham Metzora. But just in case it's a shlomim, it needs smicha, it needs nesachim, it needs tunuvas chazav v'shaik. So you have to treat it the chumrah, no matter whether it would be an asham or a shlom. Benechal, and what's the zman achila for it? Le'yom b'layla. So you see clearly that you do limit the achilas, the zman achila of a shlomim when you have a mixture with an asham. There's no raya from there. Tikkun gavra shani. This fellow is a Safek Metzora. How is he going to correct his condition? How is he going to reset and get back to normal? This is the only option. So even though normally maybe L'chatchila Reb Shimon would not allow you to limit the zman achil of a carbon, when you're in a situation where you have no choice and you have to bring a carbon to reset this Metzora, will allow it even though you're going to have to limit the zman achila shlomim on that side that it was a shlom. So you explained how you could bring an asham when you don't know if it's an asham or a shlomim. We cover all the bases, as the Rashi told us, we figured out how to process it where it will satisfy all of the different needs. The problem is, what about the like? Like my klimer, like shemen, you can't just pour a chulin of shemen on the mizbeach. So how do you process this like shemen that it's only a Safek if this fellow is really a Metzora or not? I'll tell you what you do. The Amar like zeh yehi nedafa. Rashi tells us that there's a shita who holds that you're allowed to be misnadev oil as a matana by itself, and it's treated like a mincha. They actually make a kamitza of the oil. I don't know exactly how they would do that, and they would be makar that kamitza of oil on the mizbeach, and the rest of the oil would be nechal kohen. So this like shemen, you make it tonight. If he's a Metzora, it's treated like the like shemen of Metzora, and if not, we'll treat it like it's an independent matana. Correct the Gemara, it's not going to work well. Why? Because of the Dilma Lav Metzora, on the tzad that this fellow was not a Metzora. Uflay Mekamitz, he has to make a kamitza. So what's the problem? The Mekamitz will make a kamitza on oil. Correct the Gemara, but Dilma Metzora. What if he's really a Metzora? Uvay Matan Sheva. Now you need 7 zrikos on the mizbeach of this oil. What's the problem? The oiv. Do a kamitza and then put 7 matanos on the mizbeach. Frankly more, but you can't, because the pasuk says you have to take a full loik of shemen, and from that full loik of shemen, you have to spritz on the mizbeach. But if you already made a kamitza, You've already separated part of this full like. So you're missing. Zaktamar, no problem. After you make the kmitza, the maisi porta umalale, you refill the jug. You made a kmitza, you took some oil out, then you're going to be makar on the mizbeach. But before you do the 7 matanos to service the Metzora, you add more oil to it. It's not like we looked at the Mishnah. Chazar haloik achlo yotzak. If the loik was missing before they did the matanos, no problem. Yimalenu, you could refill it. Gemara, but ba'boy haktara, the kmitza, the little bit of oil that you took out, you have to be makter it on the mizbech. Zaktamara, the actually, you can be makter it, but the question is emas. At what point in this process would they be makter this little bit of oil on the mizbech? Botzer matna sheva. So if the process is they bring the loik shemen, they take a little bit of oil out of it for the kmitza. Then they refill the oil, and then they do the matna sheva. Now we take that kmitza that we took off earlier, and you put it on the mizbeach. You can't do that anymore. Why? Havalahu shirayim shechatru ben kmitza laktorah. What happens by your regular mincha? If you made kmitza, and now you have your big bowl of shirayim, and you have your kmitza. Now, before you had a chance to put the kmitza on the mizbeach, some mincha shirayim from the bowl went missing. If that happens, you could no longer put the kmitza on the mizbeach. You could only put the kmitza on the mizbeach while the full shirayim remain intact. Here we have this oil matana that we're treating as a mincha. You took oil out of it for your kmitza, and then you made 7 matanis of the loik shemen. Now you want to put the kmitza on the mizbeach. It's too late because some of the shirayim of this oil has already been depleted because of the matna sheva. The ein maktirin esakoymetz alem. So that's not an option. You cannot make taktoris kmitza after you did the matna sheva on behalf of the Metzora. Okay, so try plan B. He bought some matna sheva. Have the shirayim shechashu make mitzvah Torah. The ein maktirin esakoymetz alem, and he called the matna sheva. Okay, so why don't you take the kmitza right away, be maktir, and then only after that do you do the matna sheva. Zok Gemara, that's another problem. Kol shemimenu liishim hareyu beval taktiru. The halacha is, if you have a mincha and you were already maktir the kaimitz, and now you have shirayim, the shirayim has to be eaten by the kahana. You're not allowed to take any of that shirayim and be maktir on the mizbeach. So if you want to first make the kmitza of the oil, and then you want to take the matna sheva on behalf of the Metzora, well, if it's not a Metzora, then it's a mincha. If it's a mincha, you're no longer allowed to put any of the oil on the mizbeach because you already were maktir the kmitza. So we're stuck. You can't be maktir the kmitza before the matna sheva because you won't be able to do the matna sheva, and you can't be maktir the kmitza after the matna sheva because once the matna sheva was done, you can't be maktir the kmitza anymore. So how could you possibly make this work? Amar Yehuda Bared of Shimon Pazi, no problem. Now matzik lahu l'shem eitzim. When you place the 7 matanos on the mizbeach, you do it with a tnai. If I'm really a Metzora, then these 7 matanos are a matanatak. But if it's really a mincha, if it's really a matnas nadava of oil, then the oil that I'm putting on the mizbeach should be l'shem eitzim. In other words, it should be like I'm just pouring fuel onto mizbeach. It's not a hakrav of a carbon. How do you know that gets around this problem? Bal taktiru, the Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, l'reach nichoyach iyatonala. The pasuk says, we quoted earlier, kol shevimenu liishim hareyu bebal taktiru. Let's see if we can find the pasuk. inside. It says Kol Sa'ar V'Chol Davash Lo Saktiru Mimenu Ishe Lashem. And from Mimenu we learn Kol Shemimenu Liishim. Once the Chamitza, the representative, was put on the Mizbeach already, you're not allowed to put anything else Ishe Lashem L'Reich Nechoyach. But if you're not putting it L'Reich Nechoyach as a Hakrava, you're putting it there as fuel, that would be allowed. So the Tanya Beliezer Emer L'Reich Nechoyach Yetamala Aval Atamayla, turning on to Daf Ayin Zayin, Amar Aleph. About the Mila Shemetza. Correct tomorrow, we still have another problem. V'ha'ika Shirayim, you still have Shirayim, the boy Michlinu. You have to eat the Shirayim. Let's say it's a mincha. If it's a mincha, you have to eat the leftover oil. The problem is, after we made the Kmitza, if you remember, we said we had to add a little bit of oil. Why did we have to add a little bit of oil? Because then it would be missing from the loik shemen, and in order to do the 7 matanos on behalf of the Metzora with the loik shemen, it has to be a complete loik. Once you took a kmitza, the loik is not complete. So the Gemara said earlier, you refill it. So for the Gemara, if you refilled it, then how can you eat the shirayim? That little bit that you added, when did you add it? You added it after the kmitza. If you added it after the kmitza, so the kmitza wasn't moderate. So how are you going to eat this oil if there's oil in there that didn't have the heter of the kmitza? No problem. Deparically, you will redeem it. In other words, when you put it in, you put it on tonight. If this is the like shemen of Metzora, I'm adding it to be Kedusha Saguf. But if it's not the like shemen of Metzora, it's really a regular matnas of oil, this that I'm not adding it out in carbon, I'm adding it out bedakabayis, and therefore you could redeem it. For Gemara, you still can't do that. The park lehecha, where exactly are you going to redeem? Where's this oil going to be when you redeem it? Igavoy, if it's in Hazara, which is where a mincha needs to remain, then come ayil chulin Hazara. By de facto, by making this into chulin, by being paided, you're bringing chulin to the Hazara. You're not literally carrying chulin from chutz Hazara into the Hazara, but this that's in the Hazara, if you're making it into chulin, it's as if you're bringing chulin into the Hazara, which is not allowed. And if you're going to do this whole thing outside, well, that's a bigger problem. Then the whole shirayim will be possible Yosy. If so, be Yosy. So tomorrow I'll tell you what you do. You point it inside. You asked me a kasha, you ma'il chulin Hazara? No, the chulin neve'elahavya. Chulin Hazara means literally transporting chulin from outside the Hazara to inside the Hazara. Making bedek abayis into chulin in the Hazara by a ptia, that's not called chulin Hazara. The Amar Rab Shimon said, Ein misnavdi shemen. Rab Shimon disagrees with the whole premise. This whole shtickle that we had is based on the assumption that you could be noidiv a maton of shemen as a standalone item, and we treat it like a mincha. But Rab Shimon says you can't do that. Zok Gemara, tekuna gaver shani. Even Rab Shimon would agree that when we're in a tight spot here, you have a person who's a Safek Metzora, and you got to reset him. We will allow this arrangement, which will have to rely on a matan of shem. Yotzav Rabbi Chumi kamed Ravina. Rabbi Chumi was sitting in front of Ravina. Yotzav ibn Amar mishmei Rafuna bar Tachlifa, and he said in the name of Rafuna bar Tachlifa, and he asked a question: what's the whole big problem over here? You have to treat it like a oshim or shlamim. Nah, the name of oshim said Yehashim Toli. Every person did an avera, right? You know, your Rebbe gave you a patch because he thought you did something wrong, and you said, Rebbe, I didn't do it. So the Rebbe says, you didn't do this, but I'm sure you did something else that you deserve a patch for. So let him say, if I'm really a Metzora, so this is an Asham Metzora. And if I'm not really a Metzora, let it be an Asham Tali. I'm sure I have an Avera that I owe for. Zok to Gemara, can't you bring a Nashim Tali on your own and just say, I probably did an Avera? Can you do that? Zok Gemara, Man Tana, the Palagalid Rabbi Eliezer, Rab Shimonu. The fact that Rab Shimon didn't offer this option is a raya that he argues with Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer was the one who said anybody could just bring a Nashim Tali just in case he did an Avera. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. And Vibalt Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He couldn't use that option, and therefore he had to say it's a shlomen. The Amar Ein Misnad V'Nashim Tali. Amar Lei, when Ravina heard this, he said, "Oy vey, what amaratzis are you telling me? You're revealing to us that you're a good amaretz. Amalei taida taida. You're a talmid chacham. How can you say such a stupid thing? Imri b'dichri bichel vilach. In order, the asham tali is brought from a completely different type of animal than the asham Metzora. As Rashi tells us, the asham tali is brought from a ayol. It's a minimum of 2 years old, while the asham Metzora is brought from an animal that's under a year old. So how could you tell me that you're going to bring this animal and you're going to say if it's not going to be the asham Metzora, it's going to be the asham tali? You have the wrong type of animal. So what amaratzes did you bring up to suggest that you should make it into an asham tali? Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zoicha to finish Daf Ayin Vov and part of Ayin Zayin. I apologize for my voice, but
wow, you sounded
all Shabbos.
The alarms sound terrible.
What is with your voice anyway?
I can tell you one thing. Everybody around me is very happy.
It's a happy voice.
Okay.
I lost my voice. As a matter of fact, I was supposed to say a couple of words. You have to thank the Machatonim for a beautiful Shabbos, but I couldn't. So I'm actually gonna have to type it out and have my Shirley read it.
You didn't speak?
I can't get any words out. This is I'm light. I haven't opened my mouth for a day because I needed to get some type of voice back for tonight.
Oh my God, you sound terrible.
I think it's an opportune time to get It's an opportune time to get a maturgan. You should just be whispering, and then you get a maturgan to speak on your behalf. I'm willing to sign up for that job.
I wanted to use sign language.
That job.
I wanted to use sign language, but there's only one expression in sign language that I know, and I can't use that in public.
Okay, Shkaya.
See, do you have enough to make this is Moshe a day Zolti as yard site for Moshe Zolti? It was today, right? It was Shabbos.
Yes.
No, it's tonight. It's tonight, and today was my mother.
Your mother's, right?
And Shabbos was my mother. Sunday's my father.
So, what's your mother's name and what's your father's name?
My father is Moshe ben Chaim, and my mother is Hessa Bas David.
The neshama should have an aliyah, and our learning should be a schutz for the neshama.
Amen.
Okay.
Yosy, your parents cared so much about everybody in the Kehillah, and they still do. So they should be Mils Yosher on behalf of the whole Kehillah.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Tomorrow at 8?
Tomorrow at 7 and at 9.
7, I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When are you coming back?
I'm sorry?
When are you coming back?
I'll either be back for Wednesday morning or for Thursday morning.
Oh, wow. You did the whole week.
The last Shaver Baruch is Tuesday night in Monsey.
You have to go to all of them? I didn't go in all my kids'
Yeah,
show.
so if it's the last
Well,
one,
the last one my wife's brother is making.
if the last one is Tuesday, why aren't you back Wednesday?
Because my wife's not sure if she's going to have the kayak to drive back with me through the night. She might